Hello, crypto boys and ghouls. Welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptmancer, where we feature content on play and earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. In today's video, I wanted to discuss a land strategy that might be a little abnormal here. And we talked about this on this past Saturday's Splinterlands TV stream with our audience. And just a note, I mean, this was a conversation we had earlier, well, I guess this past weekend, where we did not know at the time that the land grain market was not going to be available for the land 1.5 release. And it was obviously before this evening's town square discussion, where some land conversation happened that was relevant to this conversation. But in either case, I wanted to share this conversation because I thought it was still very relevant as just a conversation point, and just discussing different land strategies and what it means, and maybe there's something in here for you that you'll gather or find relevant. I wanted to share it here, and if you're curious, you can join us on Splinterlands TV on Saturday evenings and Sunday evenings Eastern Time, where we discuss topics like this with our audience in real time, so be able to first to get this information before we publish it here on YouTube. And definitely also, if you want to stay up to date on the latest and greatest on our thoughts on Splinterlands and play and earn games in general, make sure you follow us on Twitter as well. With that, let's hop into the clip, and until next time, keep stacking those stats. So let's talk about land, and I'm going to talk about a topic here. We've been hearing a lot of talk in the community, on Discord, on YouTube, whatever, talking a lot about magical land and the secret Pretoria and research tokens. And I wanted to share some of my thoughts on magical land and what I'm specifically doing with magical land. And let me just preface this this thought process and some of my reasons here, in so much as that my land strategy is probably 100% going to be different than your land strategy. My cards are different than your cards probably, and my land is probably different than your land. So the point that I want to make in this discussion is not that my land strategy is correct or right. It's just what I'm thinking is best for me personally and the way I'm approaching land. And your mileage may vary, right? Do your own research, all that jazz. But what I want to talk about when it comes to magic land and research tokens and secret of Pretoria are a couple of things that you may not be hearing from other sources that might be of interest to understand, and help you make your own decisions when it comes to magic land. And what I want to talk about specifically is do start land 1.5 with a no magic land strategy. And for me, this is actually what I'm going to be doing. And to give you, I guess, the frame of reference or the context of my decision here is, I have 2 tracts of land, and on those 2 tracts of land I have a total of 23 magical plots of land, right? And right now, with my land planning that I've done, basically I'm at a point where I'll be able to work on day 1 out of those 200 plots of land. I'll be able to work 160 is what it's looking like right now. So I'm gonna have 40 plots of land that are not going to be necessarily worked or have land workers on them on day 1. And of those 40 plots of land that are unworked, 23 of those are going to be magical common plots of land. And you're probably going, Tails, that's crazy. You have magical land. Why wouldn't you work that land? That's valuable land. And I say, yes, it's valuable land for later in land 1.5 or land 2.0, but to start land 1.5, I don't think it is that valuable. And I'm going to tell you why I've come to this conclusion for me specifically. And let's start with costs, right? Because I don't think a lot of people understand the cost of magical land. Now, I'm not talking necessarily about the cost of working magical land, because a common magical land plot for workers is going to cost the same in grain as any other plot of land. That's just built into the land cost equation. What I'm specifically talking about is the clearing cost of land. If you look at clearing plots, a common plot of land, for example, natural, that you might want to farm grain or SPS on day 1 of land 1.5 launch, costs 1.5 million production points to clear. On the other hand, my 23 magical common plots of land will cost 4.5 million production points to clear that land. Now I want to walk through 2 calculations here for you when it comes to clearing a plot of land. You can clear a plot of land with time crystals to speed things up, which has a cost, or you can clear the plot of land with workers using their base production points. You don't use bonus points for clearing land. So let's just say for a simple example, I had common Chaos Legion cards, like Chaos Legion reward commons. There are 5 of them on a plot of common magical land. They generate 5,000 production points per hour. And basically what you can do is you can use a quick math calculation. You can take 4.5 million production points to clear the land. You divide it by 5,000 production points an hour for those 5 max commons for Chaos Legion. And it's going to take you 900 hours. 900 hours divided by 24 hours, it's going to take you 37.5 days to clear one single magical common plot of land. 37.5 days. So 5 weeks or over a month after land 1.5 is launched, you'll finally be able to farm research tokens on your common magical land plot. Not rare, not epic, not legendary. Obviously those are more PP and longer time periods there, right? Now for those 37.5 days that your workers were working, they were consuming grain, right? So you have a cost not only in time to start the land process, but you also have a grain cost. Now, the cost of grain for those common Chaos Legion reward cards is 50 grain per hour, right? So if we go back and do the calculation, how many hours was it? 900 hours. So 900 hours times 50 grain per hour. It's going to cost you 45,000 grain. If I'm doing this right, 45,000 grain to basically clear that plot of land. Let me just make sure I'm doing this right. 900 hours, right? 900 hours. Yes, 900 hours, and it's 50 grain per hour, 45,000 grain. Let's say you're able to get grain at, not the 1 DEC cost. Let's say you're able to get grain at half price on the market, so 0.5 DEC. So it's going to cost you 22,500 DEC just to clear that plot of land over 37.5 days. 22,500 DEC at the current price of DEC. By the way, DEC is ticking up here. It's at 85 Splintoshis. Looks like right now. Let's just do a refresh just to make sure. It's down to 83, but it was up to 86 earlier. Let's just use that calculation. Times that. So it's going to cost you like $18.68 to clear that plot of land before you can even start farming research tokens. So not only do you have the cost of the plot of land plus the 5 Chaos Legion reward card commons from this example, but now you have the 50,000 DEC staked, the time of 37.5 days, and I have about $19 in grain cost, just so you can start farming research tokens. But research tokens have no known value yet, and we're going to get into that in just a second. Well, let's talk about the other way you can clear land. You can clear land with time crystals, right? 4.5 million production points to clear a common magical plot of land using time crystals, which grant 10,000 PP. Basically, it's 450 time crystals would be the equivalent to instantly clearing a common magical plot of land, because you take 4.5 million divided by 10,000, it's 450. So 450 time crystals will clear that magical plot of land instantly, and then you can start farming research tokens. 450 time crystals, if you don't have them already, are going to cost you 100 DEC. So that's going to cost you, again, 45,000 DEC, right? And that's basically the same cost as the grain cost, right? Before we were able to buy, in our example, grain at half price at 0.5 DEC per grain as a hypothetical example. But in this case, you can't get a discount on time crystals. Time crystals are 100 DEC from the castle. So time crystal cost at 0.00083 DEC, if you wanted to buy time crystals to immediately clear your one common magical plot of land, it's $37.35. So, you have to look at these costs. And here is the thing, is I have 23 common magical plots of land. I don't know if I want to spend all that extra money to farm research tokens, and why is that? Well, here's the thing with research tokens that no one's really talking about. Research tokens are not going to have any value on day one of land. Let that sink in for a moment. The secret of Praetoria is not going to be solved within the first 24 hours of land launching. Now, for me personally, I'm not a big enough player in Splinterlands. I don't have enough cards. I'm not like a big enough player to compete anywhere near any type of leaderboard or top of research tokens in Praetoria. So I don't have any delusions of grandeur that, if I start farming research on day one, I'm going to somehow magically be like a boss or a leader when it comes to research tokens by the time the secret of Praetoria is revealed. So anything I would do for research token participation, whether I start on day one or I start on day 30, isn't really a big deal in the grand scheme of things. And why do I say that? I say that because the secret of Praetoria isn't going to be solved in one day. It's not going to be solved in 30 days. The secret of Praetoria may go for many months. It could go past December of this year, which is 4 months out. So why am I going to spend all this money clearing plots of land when my focus should really be on clearing common natural plots so I can farm SPS and DEC on day one, right? Or not DC, SPS and grain on day one, where I can actually take that value and use it to spin up my magical plots on my own time when, it's most cost effective for me to do so. And maybe that's, 7 days into land, maybe it's 30 days into land, what have you. So my theory is, again, is starting with a no magic land strategy, focusing on the things that have value and that are going to be at a premium on day one, and not things that are going to take months, possibly 6 months or more, to have any value. And by the way, how much is it going to cost you to farm research tokens? And what is the value of a research token? No one knows. You might get airdrops, you might get soulbound benefits, you might get stuff that you can't even sell. So at the end of the day, if you do the math, and I've done some of the math here, it can cost, literally hundreds of dollars for one plot of magical land just to spin up and farm over a period of time here in land 1.5? And are you going to get that value back in research tokens? Basically, by spinning up and farming research tokens on day one, you're basically taking a loan out on a future asset that is unknown from a whatever asset it is, who knows, and you have no idea what the value is. So you could literally be spending hundreds of dollars per plot of land farming research tokens that you can't sell, perhaps. And the question is what is that value worth to you? Like, for example, I'm gonna channel Benny from Total Recall. I've got 5 kids to feed, right? So if I've got $200 today that I'm gonna spend on research tokens, or I have $200 I'm gonna feed my 5 kids, or my 5 plots of land that I wanna farm grain or SPS on. Well, for me, it's gonna be my 5 kids or my 5 plots, right? I'm not gonna farm something that I don't have any idea what value it's gonna provide, or, $200 is a lot. And where am I getting $200 from, you're probably asking? Well, let's just say research tokens become usable for value for some type of reward or airdrop in Splinterlands. I'm saying that value is probably 4 months out, like December timeframe, maybe later, depending on when they push land 2.02. So if you look at 4 months of feeding your land workers grain on that land, plus the land clearing that you paid for in either time crystals or in grain, if you do the math, even if you don't have a ton of production points on that land, again, you're not getting any value farming research tokens. You're not getting SPS, you're not getting grain, so you can't recoup any of that value. So you're literally paying, let's just take the 5 Chaos Legion max reward commons, 50 grain per hour over 4 months. How much is that going to cost you in grain alone, right? Let's just do the math real quick. 50 grain per hour, and you're doing it 24 hours in a day, and there's 30 days in a month, and there's 4 months till maybe you can cash in the research tokens. That one magical plot of land, you're gonna have to buy 144,000 grain just to feed all those workers, just to farm those research tokens. So in 4 months, you get something unknown back in value, hopefully. 144,000 in grain. Let's say you're not paying 1 DEC. Let's say you're paying, 0.5 DEC. Let's say you're getting a 50% discount on the market. So, and DEC is, let's say DEC is at peg at that point in time. Well, you just spent $72 feeding your workers for 4 months. Now, if you're getting grain at 1 DEC instead of half a DEC, it's $144 that you just paid your workers. And if it's not 4 months, it's 6 months, well, you can increase that number by 33%. So you see where I'm going here. It could easily be $100 or $200 in costs that you're putting into that one common magical plot of land. And this is an example with just Chaos Legion reward card commons. We're not even talking about rares or gold foils or epics or anything fancy. If you put more stuff on there, certainly you're getting more research tokens, but you have more costs. And that's really my point here is, for me, I'm going to take the slow and steady route. I'm going to do some research token farming for sure. I'll participate in Secrets of Praetoria. It's just not going to be a part of my initial land strategy when I start land 1.5. Erroneous is saying they need to do an infomercial on research tokens. Let Matt direct it and Bulldog do it. Yeah. Any information would be good. Like if they told us what we're getting and when we were getting it and how we were getting it, that would be helpful, and that might change my mind. But as it stands right now, let me just put it this way. Other than perhaps Rooney, which we talked about earlier on the stream today, how many pre-sales in Splinterlands since, let's say, 2021 of August when I started playing have I participated in that I was Very happy that I participated in. Like I said, other than Rooney, none. And what is research tokens? Well, it's essentially a pre-sale because you have really no details, you have no value, and you have no timeline. So it's basically just another pre-sale when you think about it that way. Mondroid is pretty happy with his Lux Vega. Yeah, I mean, Lux Vega, I guess, was a pre-sale, right? I guess you're right, because that was made available to those that didn't attend Splinterfest, right? Yeah, so Lux Vega is the other exception, I would say. Rooney and Lux Vega are probably the exception, but everything else, Chaos Legion, Nodes, Tower Defense, GLG, pretty much anything else that was sold in a pre-sale fashion declined in value over the last 2 years. Bjangles is shaking his head to stake Rooney on grain producing plot in order to break even, avoid having to buy grain. But the logic of Secret of Pretoria being a pre-sale helps make that decision easier. Yeah, again, I mean, like I said, my train of thought is based on my land situation. And my land situation is I have 40 plots of land that aren't going to be worked to start on day one. So my focus is going to be on getting them operational as quickly as possible. And by spending time cards and grain and time vault crystals on magical plots of land, it's just not a good optimal use of resources for my situation. Everyone's situation will be different though.